Welcome to Entertainment Drive-Thru. Today's special is Rhonda Smith, legendary bass player.
Drummer Mr. Smith.
Quiet on the set.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to
Hello, welcome to Entertainment Drive-Thru. I'm Anna, with me is my co-host Dan, and today we have a very special guest. She's an amazing bassist. She's played with the likes of Prince, Chaka Khan, Beyonce, T.I., Erykah Badu, Patti LaBelle, Little Richard, George Clinton, and more. She's been on the covers of Bass Player magazine and spent stints on The Martin Short and The Wayne Brady Show. She's had 3 platinum plaques on her wall, and in 2004 she played for 1.4 million attendees in over 88 sold-out dates on Prince's wildly successful musicology show. Let's welcome, joining us via Skype, is the one, the only, Rhonda Smith!
Yeah!
Woo!
Welcome to the show.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Anna. Thank you, Dan.
Yeah.
And wow, what a blow-up you have given me.
Yes!
How's it going?
Great. It's going great. Thank you.
I know it's not a Prince tour, but
But-
we're trying to make it the equally as awesome.
But you didn't mention one of the coolest
Jeff
gigs
Beck?
that she had. Yeah, you didn't mention Jeff
Well,
Beck.
It wasn't on there.
It was.
It was too obvious.
It wasn't written down, so that means she doesn't do it.
No. It was written down. It was just not written down on my thing because it's too obvious. It just,
I got you.
That's, of course, the one I forget, the most awesome one.
But tell us a bit about yourself. I mean, how did you get started? I mean, this is a massive list of people you played with. How did you get going in that?
You know what? I just did it. I just did it. But I was in the right place to do it. I'm from Canada originally, and I had some fun in Canada, and Canada was great. But the music scene in Canada at that time where I was from was completely different, and there was not a lot of opportunity to play with artists of that caliber or whatnot, because a lot of that stuff wasn't even on the radio then. So that was a great part of it, about it, going to the U.S. and being able to have the opportunity to play with those people. So I kind of just got into it, but I have always played bass since I was a little kid.
Okay.
Now, why did you pick up the bass as opposed to any other instrument?
I grew up in a musical family, which was really great. When I was probably about 10 or 11, I'm the youngest of 4, and I have a brother who's about 15 months older than me, and I used to compete. We were very competitive at that age, and he brought a bass home one time, probably when he was about 12 or 13, and he told me not to touch it. So that started it.
Okay, and doesn't he hate himself now? He's like, oh my God, I could have been that. I could have been on tour with Prince. I could have been on tour with Jeff Beck.
No, he loves it. He's actually, my brother's still a bass player.
Oh, good.
But I mean, he does other things also. He doesn't do it as a main living, but he does it because he loves it still.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, and he's a great bass player. So I mean, but he still gets that back in him, which is really hilarious. We laugh about it all the time. It's really funny.
He's like, you have a career because of me.
He's a good guy.
Yeah, and now I wanted to ask, when was that moment that you realized that being a bass player was exactly what you wanted to do? It wasn't going to be working at a Tim Hortons. You wanted to be a bass player.
Probably when I was about 15, believe it or not, 15 or 16. I kind of unfortunately lost interest, I think, when I was in high school. I wasn't really that interested in doing anything other than that.
Mm-hmm. That's normally the opposite. I love that. That's like more... In all other sports type of thing, people lose interest along 15, 16. You're like, no, I'm going to be a musician. It's awesome.
Yeah, I didn't know how I was going to do it. But you know what? I grew up with a family. My parents were really cool in the sense that they were always like, do what you would do for a living, if you were a millionaire. But just do it because you want to do it.
That's amazing.
That's a great way of looking at it. I mean, there's way too many people in this business that look at it like, oh, I'm only doing this because I need to make a quick, few $1 million. And then they make a quick like $2 and they realize, what, I think I'm in the wrong business.
So true. But not everybody gets a shot. Not everybody
That's
gets
true.
lucky. There's a lot of circumstances that go into a lot of things.
And that is the beauty of the way that the industry works today, where with all the technology, everyone has the chance.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
It is very true. It is still America, that place where you can make your dream come true.
Yay!
You can. You really can.
Yeah.
And what brought you to America?
Well, the easiest way a lot of things brought me to America, but actually probably while I was working with Prince, I was able to be legally coming back and forth, which was major for me at the time. Mm-hmm. But I actually became a dual citizen about 3 years ago.
Congratulations.
Yeah, congratulations.
That must make the visa process so much easier.
It is so great because I have both passports, and it was really that was the biggest gift that I always wanted. So it was really great and on time. So I'm very grateful for that.
Anna's jealous of you because she can't do the dual citizenship with Iceland.
Oh yeah, that's true.
But it is what it is.
I don't care. I got so happy when I got the green card. I was like, oh my God, I can work with whatever I want, not just like OPT, just music related. I can work whatever.
Right. But I wanted to ask though, was because you mentioned that, you kind of came to the States because of playing with Prince. Was he the first person that you ended up getting like a big gig with?
Well, I mean, of that stature, there's really nothing bigger than him. So I would have to say yes to that.
I was going to say, or at least he tells everyone.
Yeah, I would probably say that. Yeah, and I stayed with him off and on for 13 years.
Wow, that's amazing. Now, how did you get the gig in the first place?
How I got to the connection, we would say, to Prince was really through Sheila E. in the end, which is a great friend of mine, a friend of mine, Kat Dyson, guitar player, also from Montreal, and myself were doing an endorsement, and we were doing some shows for Godin guitars. Mm-hmm. At the NAMM shows, we did some demonstrations in the California NAMM show. Mm-hmm. Okay. In Anaheim. And then there's something that happens every year around this time in Germany called the Music Messe. Mm. And we went there also in Germany. And we met up with Sheila E. again. And at that time, she was considering being his band leader for a new configuration that she was going to put together. Mm-hmm. Okay. And she liked what Kat and I was doing. So we, because there's kind of a small world when it's females playing. Right. Mm. You kind of get to know everybody. So we gave her a package, and for whatever happened, in the end, he looked at it, and I got a call, several months down the line. But for whatever other turn of events happened, Sheila didn't end up being in that group in the end. So it was a lot of things that happened from start to finish. But it was because of Sheila that I actually got an introduction to Prince.
Ah, excellent.
It's amazing.
Yeah. And I mean, you played with him for a long time. Do you still play with him at all, or just not at all anymore?
I haven't played with Prince since I started playing with Jeff. We took a break. Mm-hmm. Probably 2009, I think, was the last time, because I've been with Jeff now for 4 years.
Nice.
And I have to ask, for Jeff Beck, when for the application there, which I assume there wasn't really an application, did it say that he was specifically looking for a female bass player because he had Tall before you?
Yeah, I don't think that he was specifically looking for a female bass player, just because Tal was the only female bass player that he's ever had, and he's had tons of bass players before that were all men, at least more than six or seven that I can think of. So it's just people tend to always remember the female, and think that it's it's just a girl thing. It's she's just there because she's a chick,
What? Really?
But I have to say though, I'm really glad that the two of you got that gig and are bringing that power up, because honestly, people don't realize this, but girls can be amazing at musical instruments, and I don't know why people thought they couldn't.
Yeah, I don't know why either. And there's so many other great female bass players and guitar players and drummers and sax players and keyboard players out here. It's amazing. And then there's so many new young ones coming out. It's really, really great to see.
And there are a lot of bands that are now looking in specific for actually girl player, which is awesome, to sort of like diversify the band, to have something unique, because people notice that? Because they see badass rockers like you, and then they're like, yeah, that's gonna look really cool.
Well, it's funny, and it's great. I really don't think about it because I've just done it for so long. You know,
Right.
it's I don't really pick it apart that way, but. If I have to step out, I'll laugh and think that that's kind of cute. Yes.
Right.
And I'll get floored too. Anybody who get floored, if they can see a girl who can really throw down, let's say, it's in a masculine, in a testosterone field.
Isn't
generally
it awesome though? Like to show it to their face. You're like, you show up there and they're like, they don't know what to expect, and then you just do it, and they're like, whoa.
Music is fun. It's really a great business. It's a great blessing.
Yeah.
If you can be able to play, especially with cats on this level, it's really a wonderful thing.
All right, well, we're going to take a quick break to listen to a clip from Sunshine by Rhonda Smith, but we will be right back.
And I wanted to ask you, because you played with a lot of people to this point, and I wanted to know, what are things that you have found have really worked for you as a musician, and what are things that haven't worked as well?
Probably what comes to mind, first of all, is, the number one rule that I've always had, regardless of who I play with, is I try to respect the music first.
Okay.
So, meaning that I put a lot of weight on knowing my parts and taking responsibility for my part when I go into a group. I think that's really important. Not over embellishing and just understanding it and then trying to go from there. There's a lot of stuff to that, being responsible too, always being on time. You got to get along with people. It's a lot more than just the music. It becomes family too. So it's not really something that I can answer with one sentence.
Right.
But it's a lot of stuff that I've learned and hopefully continue to be able to work on,
Yeah. What about, is there anything that you've noticed maybe that a lot of people are doing today that you think doesn't work, or you just think that it's kind of silly that they're thinking that this is a good idea?
Like, no, you're not allowed to do it.
You know what? Nothing really comes to mind that I want to say without sounding like I'm trying to bash something.
Oh, I understand.
What about lesson learned? Something you've done, but you would not do it again? Then we're not bashing everybody.
And
then
by
we're
the
just
way,
learning.
This is not asking you to say who your least favorite person to play with was.
No, but I'd probably say in this business, trying to juggle. We can never get it right.
Oh my God. I'm so grateful that you say that, because I feel like as musicians, we try to put on so many different hats. It can be it can be so hard, and then you get burned out so easily.
Yeah, and it's almost impossible to get it right. It just turns out being, the end result of where the cards lay. When you're trying to do gigs, we don't have job security out here. We basically do what we do and we support ourselves. So you try to make the right decisions with who you work with too.
Right.
Because sometimes you have to pass on things that you're not available to do down the line, and then things change, and it's crazy.
Right. And that's a good point. I've said this before, but it's really true, because if you're playing with 5 different groups, well, then the truth is that's it. You're playing with 5 different groups, and if someone asks you, well, how is it playing with them? You can't really say, because you can't really have an emotional attachment to 5 different bands at the same time, because that's a lot of work. And at that point, you're really just learning the music to play it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean that's why I really admire the people that when you ask them, how many bands are in, they'd say either one or 2 tops, because if you're only in 1 or 2 bands, then you can really focus on what the music needs, as opposed to just playing the music because you're getting paid.
True, and it depends on what band means to you, or the people that you're talking about. You can be a member of a band, or you can be a member of a band.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
You play with a lot of artists, but then you also have your solo stuff with, by the way, brilliant title, IntelliPop.
Thank
And
you.
then RS2.
Thank you. They were a lot of fun. A lot of fun to do those records. I have a third one in the works.
Yay!
Hopefully for next year. Hopefully for next year.
And how do you differ from this stuff? I mean, it must be so different from what you play normally. Is it very, very different, or is it similar styles, or?
You mean to the artists that I play with?
No, yeah, exactly.
No, I mean it's different, but it's kind of a mix of a lot of things. It's like a big stew, you know, a good funky stew.
Yay! That's what we like. Come on, it can't be the bass unless it's like, funky.
Yeah.
I feel like whoever designed the bass in the first place had to have just been looking at it going, well, that's a funky instrument. Yeah, well, we'll just design it for that.
Bass is so much fun, even if it's extremely fundamental and you're just playing two notes. If you have the right sound and the right feel, it's just so much fun.
Yeah, because I remember when I first picked up the bass, I think the first thing I learned was Smoke on the Water, because it's just do 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 just over and over again. and then like immediately, like 3 days later, I just went, okay, you know what? Screw this. I'm playing some James Brown.
Do you remember what was the first song you learned?
You know what? I think you just brought up something, because I think it probably was Smoke on the Water.
No kidding.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's so funny
It
because
was that.
and it's so funny because it's such an easy groove, but it
True.
just moves. Like I love and some of those easy bass lines that everyone goes, oh, it's just a bunch of eighth notes. Like some of them are so much fun to play just because they move along. They don't just kind of sit there on like one thing. It actually feels nice.
It's a lot of fun. Even when you first start, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And you've toured around the world. Are there any specific places that are better to play than the other?
Oh man. Every place is different. I love Europe. Europe is fabulous. The audiences are amazing.
Yay.
Wow, Japan is incredible. The
Oh my
audiences
God.
again are amazing.
Mm-hmm.
We were just in Seoul. Again, audiences are incredible. Everywhere I've been, the audiences have been amazing. So don't really have a preference. It's always unique and special.
I noticed she didn't bring up Canada, so
No, what I was going to bring up next was the food, because those are the two things that go together for me.
Oh,
Have a good trip,
nice.
great music, and you want to have great food too. When you're traveling. So
Yes, especially when traveling.
That's one of those reasons why I can't wait to do a world tour someday. If I get that chance, I really can't wait, because it's like there's so much to look forward to, because you get to go to all these new countries. And it's like, even if you're there for like half a day, at least you get to go, okay, I'm going to try a new food today. And you can, because you're in a different country.
absolutely. And a lot of people have misconceptions about some of the food. Like I used to hear a lot of the time that England's food wasn't great. And I spent a lot more time in England because of Jeff Beck, obviously. He's from there.
Nice.
And it has great food. You can find great food everywhere.
That's true,
See,
though.
That's wonderful.
the only thing I hear about when people talk about English food is bangers and mash. That's all anyone ever talks about. And I'm sure there's so much more good food than that.
Man,
There is, but you know what that
fun.
sounds like? It sounds like they're just talking about pub food.
Yeah.
That's
Which is
probably where they
great.
hang out.
They have great pub food, and that's stuff that's pub food. But they have other kinds of food also. So
That's a
but-
very good point, though. I never
and
thought
great
of that.
beer and great beer.
They definitely do. They definitely do.
Oh, how is it when you're abroad? Do you do then work for hire for these specific artists, or how does it work in payments and stuff?
No, I mean usually it really depends on how you're doing things. But with the artists that I work with, we tour around the world, and you deal with them from the company that they're based from the country that they're based in.
Ah, okay.
You don't do individual stuff.
I
generally.
gotcha.
Yeah.
No, I was always so curious when you're doing these world tours, and it's like to take care of and they take care of everything, like the food and accommodation and all that stuff, right?
Yeah, it depends on how you mean it actually to me. If I'm going with my own band doing it, or if I'm a bass player in someone else's band, there's a lot of different ways it can be done.
Right.
So I don't want to confuse you either by my answer because I wasn't sure what you were saying.
But I wanted to ask though, like when it comes to tours though, are there any suggestions or tips that you have for people maybe going on their first tour?
Wow, just be careful.
Okay.
Probably a good idea would be to get some travel insurance. That never hurts. It's very inexpensive, and it's a great idea when you're going around different countries. And try to eat well and get lots of sleep. And try not to drink too much, and all that. Try not to party too hard.
Right.
That's the very true, especially when you're traveling so much. It's hard to get the proper nutrition and sleep. I can imagine that must make such a difference, especially with the time differences and all that stuff.
Oh yeah, how do you deal with the jet lag?
You just let it deal with you, basically. Really, it's all you can do. And what helps is being a sourpuss. Don't drink. Put the red wine away. Try not to drink any alcohol when you're flying.
Right.
Drink a lot of water. It helps.
I got
you. It's not fun, but it helps.
Has there been any specific country where you found that the fans tend to want to like hang out with you guys more than others? Meaning like after the show, like they try to come find you?
Yeah, probably all over the place. But what comes to mind most recently was when we were in Dublin, which was a great town. And we had a fantastic concert with Jeff Beck. The fans were amazing. And we tried to go to a pub afterwards and tried to go somewhere quiet and just got surrounded.
Oh, bad.
But it was really great. It wasn't such a bad thing, but that's the one that comes to mind most recently.
I can imagine, especially nowadays with all the cell phones and everything, it's kind of hard to get somewhere quiet without spreading the word. Like it probably was better back in the day when it wasn't as easy to access information.
Oh, that's like we were talking to someone, and he was saying that he was at the Rainbow. This was years ago, and I forget who it was, but there was a famous guitar player there, and the guitar player was just being really rude to our friend, and so he goes, all right, and called up all his friends and told all his friends that he was there.
Wow.
So, word to any famous musicians listening to this, don't be a dick. That's the
words to remember.
Right? Like I feel like back in like the 70s, 80s, like and before, it was okay. Because if you were a dick, then there were no digital consequences. But now it gets everywhere.
This is true. I saw yesterday they had something streaming where it was the top 15 meltdowns of rock bands. And they had a video of each of the artists that they were talking about.
Yeah.
Doing their concert and just either having some kind of meltdown, either stripping off their clothes or beating somebody up or going off on somebody in the audience. It was really something.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I can imagine it. Yeah, I just...
It was hilarious.
It feels like such a weird age where it's so accessible, like everything, and it kind of sucks when you do mistakes as an artist. Like, okay, it's gonna be on YouTube for tomorrow.
But speaking of meltdowns, what has been your biggest challenge so far?
Let me think. What has been my biggest challenge? You know what? My biggest challenge, honestly, is just, it sounds corny, but it's just still trying to learn and expand on the bass as a musician all the time, every gig, every 6 months, every 3 months, every week, whatever. New challenges, new things.
Right. Yeah, I'll bet it gets kind of challenging to, really sit down and practice when you've got all these gigs that you constantly have to play.
Yeah, but you can find the time.
Okay.
You can find the time. I can definitely find the time, and I do. And when you're playing solos and doing certain things, you don't want to do the same things all the time. So you want to change it up, especially if you're doing it every night.
Right.
So you want to push yourself and you want to listen to some other things. I mean, I do anyway. So, I mean, and it's a great vehicle to do that because I have a live band to play with, people to bounce stuff off with, and an audience to tell me if it sucks or not. So it's really great.
Are there any specific techniques or anything new that you're adding that you hadn't done before?
Probably not.
Are you starting to play with your feet at all? Or
no, my feet are actually still on the ground. But
okay.
I'm doing some different rudimental stuff with my right hand, but that stuff I've always still been doing. It's just more of a question of working on timing and getting it faster,
Right.
Isolating it a little bit more, working with a metronome and so on and so forth.
Right.
So just a lot of repetitive stuff just to get certain techniques.
Are there any specific ones you try to not mimic, but try to do it like that you wish you knew?
You know what? Not so much to come to mind. Just for me, it's just more about speed right now.
So your brother is not like, haha, I can do this. Can you do this better?
So you're one of those people that's playing with your metronome and you're like, God damn it, the metronome's not going fast enough. Why is it not going fast enough?
Well, not a metronome all the time. Sometimes it's great with technology now. You have a studio, you have a drum, you have Superior Drum or Ultimate Drum or something that you can pull up, or an MPC or something that you've got instant drum sounds and instant drum kits on. So as a bass player, it's great because you've always got something rhythmic that you can play with. So you can make up lines and make up things and do things constantly against rhythm and with rhythm, which is really great. Which also at the same time helps you work on your timing.
True.
And you can speed up those things or not. So just tons of stuff to work on, guys, always, which is the great black holeness about music.
Oh yeah.
So
and I mean,
it never ends,
Yeah.
The learning never ends.
Are there any differences between when you I mean, obviously it's different, but do you do anything different when you practice with a metronome as opposed to either, Superior Drummer, or even like if you had an actual drummer? Would there be any differences in how you would practice?
Absolutely. First of all, I probably play harder with a drummer. There's no question about it. So I played really light. I'll play really light with a metronome.
Right.
So that has a lot to do with it, because there's a big difference when you're practicing probably at a normal level, and then when you go out and do a performance level, the endurance is completely different. I think how you use your muscles is a little bit different.
Very true.
Well, and there's a big difference between, feeding off the energy of another human being and playing to, the sound of a click, which is Anna's favorite sound in the world. And by that, I mean she hates it.
I'm a vocalist. I'm sorry.
But speaking of challenges, we actually have a new challenge for you today, because we are up to our segment, the Question of the Week. Question of the Week.
So in this segment, we'll ask our interviewees a new question every week, and they have to think of the funniest answer that they can come up with. To our listeners, write in your questions on our Facebook at facebook.com/entertainmentdrivethru and our Twitter at eDriveThru, and we just might use it as the question of the week. Now, Rhonda, are you ready?
I'm ready, guys.
All right. So question is, what is one of your guilty pleasures?
Eating chocolate.
Ah.
I absolutely love it.
Yeah?
Yes, I absolutely love dark chocolate.
So this is one of those
Nice.
things where you find out that you're playing in Belgium and you get all excited. You're like, I'm going to get some chocolate. This is going to be great. Oh, yeah, we got to play a show. That's cool.
Oh, yeah. Did that.
Do you have like a favorite dark chocolate?
All of them, actually.
Just anything that's handed to her.
Yeah, all of them. And especially something with almonds in it is absolutely fantastic. But hopefully as organic and as natural as possible.
By the way, and that totally explains the red wine then. I mean, what goes better with chocolate than red wine?
Absolutely.
See,
it was
I
between
get
the
her.
two of them. It was between the two of them. It was a tie.
Ah.
Actually, combination of them together is just perfect. This is
There
an
you go.
explosion of guilty pleasure.
So I could just imagine this is one of those moments where it's like she's got a little bit of dark chocolate with almonds. She's sitting there, she's like, okay. You know what? Screw it. I'm busting out the wine. And then she's thinking, you know what would go great with this? Some chocolate. Oh, I have chocolate.
Well, I need more wine.
Right?
Yes, exactly.
See, that's a deadly combination because you have one to have the other, but then you're having that other to have the first one. And before you know it, the bottle of wine is gone, and you're thinking, this was not the best idea.
What is your favorite type of red wine?
I like a great Cabernet. Yes, I love a great cab.
I gotcha.
See, because
And there's a lot of great California cabs.
oh, nice. I should check that out. We've been more into the Syrah and the Shiraz.
See, that's the thing is, since you've been in California, have you gotten more into wine than you were before?
I don't know if maybe I'd say a little bit more, but I was, coming from Quebec, Montreal, red wine was, what we did then too. A lot.
Nice.
Because everyone always asks me this. And I don't, I get it, but it's just so silly of a question that the moment you, everyone thinks that you step foot in California, and then it's like, well, I feel this really weird, I feel like I have to drink a lot of wine now. Like everything else is gone. Since I moved here, all my friends back in Michigan are like, so, are you a wino yet? I'm like, I just moved here.
You know, it's interesting. That's where I started drinking wine. I didn't really drink wine before. I was more of a beer drinker or cocktails. But yeah,
Well, but you guys don't drink alcohol in Iceland.
too expensive. You're right.
But anyway, getting back to the interview now that we've had our fun. When it comes to specific techniques on the bass, let's start with slap bass, for instance, because that's a wildly popular style of bass playing. What, when you do that technique, are there any suggestions that you have for people getting started or are trying to really define the craft? Are there any, tips that you have for slap bass?
Just practice it a lot. First of all, I'd say right off the top is probably have your hand more in an upright position,
Okay.
meaning that your thumb is going towards the ceiling rather than being down pointed to the floor. That would be the first thing I would say. And YouTube is great for a lot of things. So, you can get a lot of ideas nowadays visually and audio-wise from watching people doing slap. There's a lot of information on YouTube about that type of style. And on the other hand, which is a great preemptor, I am actually working on a book with Alfred Publishing, a bass book that we're hoping to have out at the beginning of next year.
Look at you.
Yeah.
Doing all these things is awesome.
It's going to have some tips and some conversations about bass, and I don't want to outline too much about it. I don't even want to say the title at this point because it's a little different. But it's going to have some interesting stuff about bass and something for everybody.
Is it going to be called Entertainment Drive-Thru Bass Lessons?
How did you know?
I know, right?
You found me out.
Are there any of those specific exercises that you tend to do, maybe before a show? Are there any specific ones that you gear toward, for example, I know a lot of guitar players, before they go on stage, they do kind of that quasi-chromatic type stuff.
Right. I definitely have exercises that I do. I'm going to have a lot of those, a section of that in the book too.
Okay.
For stuff that's easy for people to warm up in basic notation and with some tab too for people who want to read tab and know the fingerings and know every little detail of what's going on there. So yeah, there's quite a few things that I do. A lot of stuff on stretching too that I try to do, especially when we're in a position to do a lot of shows in a row. It's a lot of play. And like I said, it's a different intensity from when you are practicing in your studio or, doing a session from when you're doing an actual, hour and a half, 2 hour show a night, performance several times a week. It's a lot of endurance, and you're using your muscles, and they're trained. They've been trained to perform on demand.
Yeah.
So we have to treat them. We have to treat them really well and respect them too, and warm them up, which is. It's tricky. It's tricky at times, but all of that has to be done.
Yeah, and you made a point that I think is something that a lot of people need to hear is that, especially when you're going to be doing multiple shows, at a time, something to keep in mind is, for anyone listening out there is stretching is very important because a lot of people I find just, maybe they'll just do the warm-up exercises or they'll just go up and play and they go, you know what? I mean, I've been practicing my whole life. I don't need to do any of those stretches or warm-ups, but it's insanely important. And you can hurt yourself if you don't stretch your hands or you don't stretch, your muscles. You can really hurt yourself in this game.
Yeah, I mean, there's really so many things that you're dealing with, so many environmental things too. And, again, depending on the type of gig that you have, if it's an easy gig where you're just playing with a pick or do, or if you're, having to get in there and play with some fusion guys or some jazz cats,
Right.
or classical, you got to have your chops together. And everybody's different as we get older too. Diet has a lot to do with it also. Mm-hmm. A lot of people are finding little idiosyncrasies and inflammation and all kinds of things they're saying gluten now. And I mean, just a lot of things in their diet can have a lot of things to do with how your hands and your tendons and the inflammation in your ligaments work.
Yeah.
Also, it can get really complicated. We really are what we eat. So it really comes down to a lot of things.
Yeah, because I mean, there would be nothing worse than being in the middle of a performance, in front of thousands of people, and then you just stop playing, and like your singer looks at you like, "What's going on?" I don't know, my hand won't move.
Yeah, and it happens. It happens.
Yeah,
and that's probably terror. So, and now you guys just brought me back to the perfect answer for most terrifying thing that's probably ever happened to me, and that is that actually.
Oh wow.
I remember that from quite a number of years ago. And when my hand just did that, maybe from over practicing, I'm not exactly sure. Sometimes you can put over practicing and nerves together, and it becomes a very ugly concoction.
Right.
Yeah.
Of trigger thumb or something, trigger hand, trigger finger.
Ah, yeah.
Say that 10 times fast.
All right.
I don't think I can.
Trigger finger.
Trigger finger, trigger finger, trigger finger, trigger. Ah!
That you lose.
I did it twice.
I wanted to actually switch on to resources for a minute here. Do you happen to have any, internet sites or books? I mean, you've got your book that's going to be coming out, and we're very excited for that. But do you have any internet sites or books that you recommend that you think that every musician every bass player specifically, they should at least know about these?
Ooh, you caught me off guard on that. No, not at the moment.
Okay.
But there's so many resources. There's so many resources from magazines to, and there's so few even bass player magazines anymore. Things are really, really, really changing. I think people need to support live music.
Right.
I agree.
That's what we need to push.
We are unfortunately down to the end of our interview. But where are places that our listeners can find out more information about you?
Well, definitely on my website. That's rhondasmith.com.
Perfect.
Excellent. And thank you so much, Rhonda, for being on the show. It's really been an absolute pleasure talking to you.
Thank
guys,
you.
It's been a blast. Thank you so much, guys, and have an absolutely wonderful week.
Yes. And for more information on Rhonda Smith and the podcast, go to entertainmentdrivethru.com and subscribe on iTunes. Like and follow us on our Facebook at facebook.com/entertainmentdrivethru and our Twitter and Instagram at Drive-Thru.
This is Rhonda Smith, and you've been listening to Entertainment Drive-Thru.